The Direct giving us more info on Mario Kart World aired just a few days ago, and along with the Switch 2 Direct from April 2nd and the Treehouse Live events, we've got a ton of information on the game already. I haven't really had the time to express my thoughts and feelings about the game, so that's what this video is gonna be about. There is so much to talk about, but I'll try and keep this video relatively short, so let's dive straight into it and get started with the main gameplay. The gameplay in Mario Kart World looks to be the most expansive in the entire franchise, all the way from the standard Grand Prix to Knockout Tour, and of course free roam. I'll mainly talk about the overall game features, but I'll also give my brief thoughts on the modes as well. Of course, by now we know that instead of simply having a loading screen between races, you now get to drive to the next track. This all makes sense now given all the tracks are on a big open world, and man, an open world like this is super cool to finally have in a Mario Kart game. As much as I did want to see a 3D Mario game being revealed for the Switch 2, and I still think it will happen someday, having this open world Mario Kart game now is, in my opinion, also insanely cool. Now, I am a bit worried that driving in between tracks could potentially become a bit annoying or boring to do every single time if you just want to play the tracks themselves again. Well, actually, this would have been a worry, but of course we still have Versus Race, where you can basically choose how you can play the tracks, so luckily you can play the game the traditional way. One thing I also found strange at first was that Nitro and Retro tracks can now be together in the same cup. And what's even weirder is that multiple Retro tracks coming from the same game can also be in the same cup, like we see with Desert Hills and Airship Fortress in already the Flower Cup, which makes things even weirder. Having the Nitros and Retros mixed like this is something that I really don't know how to feel about. Of course, this happened in Mario Kart 8's DLC and even the Booster Course Pass, but having it in the main 8 cups in the game is kinda weird to me. Of course, it makes sense because of all the themes on the world maps and how the tracks are laid out and stuff, but it's still kind of weird in my opinion. Also, in terms of the tracks and cups, I really hope that we do get to unlock all of them over time instead of having most, if not all of them, unlocked from the start like in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Seeing as that was a port of Mario Kart 8 and that the game now has an insane amount of content, it does make sense, but I always like having unlockables in games that take some effort to get. Anyway, back to the gameplay, a lot of gimmicks and features present in older Mario Kart games seem to return in this game as well, but features like underwater driving and anti-gravity are not making a return. Now, at first, I really didn't like that anti-gravity got the boot, because I always love that feature since it makes for so many cool and interesting layouts that are otherwise just not possible. But considering you can literally play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on a Switch 2, I'm not really bothered by it much. And hey, at least we got some pretty sick new gimmicks in return, like being able to grind rails or even drive on walls, which both of these mechanics are insanely cool to see. And even a freaking rewind mechanic. Now, that is something I never expected to see in a Mario Kart game, but it seems like it will be pretty cool, so I'm curious to see how it really plays out and how useful it will actually be. As for the items, man, there are so many of them. You basically have the entire roster from 8 Deluxe and even some from Tour, like the hammers, ice flower, coin box, and more. And we've also got some pretty cool new items like Kamek, which can place down obstacles on a track, and of course the food items, which give characters a different skin. As for the game modes themselves, I'm quite happy with how they work. A lot of people are worried about the Grand Prix mode for reasons I'll get to in a bit, but at least we do have Versus Races back and some new game modes which look pretty cool. Knockout Tour is something I think I'll definitely play a lot. The thrill of racing against 23 other racers non-stop sounds like a lot of fun, and it's honestly a concept that should have been explored much earlier in my opinion. But hey, I'm not complaining. Having this mode finally be a thing is awesome. And the same thing goes for free roam. Now, a lot of people after the Switch 2 Direct were worried that free roam was basically just driving around the world with nothing to do. But luckily, after the Direct, we have seen that, well, basically, mission mode returns. There's a bunch of P-switches to find to activate a small mission, like collecting blue coins or reaching the end gate, and there's also medals and panels to find, which I'm sure unlock some pretty neat stuff. Now, I have no idea how common these objects are going to be in the world, since the world does look to be huge, but I'm sure Nintendo has thought about this and made them pretty common everywhere. And finally, we have Battle Mode. Now, I personally don't really care about this mode, but from what we've seen, it looks pretty lackluster. Only Balloon Battle and Coin Runners are confirmed to return so far, and the stage selection doesn't really look the best, at least from what we've seen. We have Big Donut from 64, but also Moo Moo Meadows? Now, I suspect you were thinking the same thing when you saw this, but my god, I really don't hope they're going back to the same shit as in Mario Kart 8, where we're basically playing on tracks instead of proper battle stages. Now, again, battle mode is something I don't really care about, but I do at least hope we get a proper battle mode like in DS or 8 Deluxe. But overall, I'm very happy with how the gameplay looks in Mario Kart World. Of course, without having played the game myself yet, I really can't judge how fun the game actually is to play, but I'm pretty optimistic and excited either way. Next, I want to talk about the tracks that have been confirmed or seen to appear in the game, even including the nitros. Now, I won't talk about the entire list of the tracks we know of yet because it's way too much to discuss here, but I will talk about the tracks I'm personally most excited about and tracks that I think are rare to include. First of all, I've noticed they've included a lot of Mario Kart DS tracks, which I personally don't really understand, especially Desert Hills and DK Pass. I can see why they brought back Aship Fortress since the Booster Course Pass failed to deliver on that, but why bring back Desert Hills and DK Pass again? I never cared for these in the slightest, and they really just seem like obscure tracks to choose. Not that they're bad tracks, well, apart from Desert Hills, but they don't really get me excited. Another strange inclusion for me is Choco Mountain from Mario Kart 64. I don't know why Nintendo loves this track so much, but it's literally been remade 3 times already in DS, 8 Deluxe, and Tour, so why bring it back again? And the same goes for Peach Beach. Why would you bring back this super basic and generic track? But anyways, enough complaining about that. I'm sure these tracks will be more exciting in this game because of all the gimmicks and stuff. And it seems like retro tracks are getting a massive upgrade even compared to in 8. And as for the nitro tracks, I am super excited to try them all out. DK Spaceport looks sick, and I'm especially stoked for Starview Peak. Looks like my dream of racing around the Comet Observatory will finally be reality, or at least something close to it. And of course, we have stuff like Salty Salty Speedway, Boo Cinema, and more. They all look pretty cool. Now, one thing which I am slightly worried about is that the tracks seem to be a lot more open and wide, and that they have shown a lot of straight sections in the tracks, especially on the intermission sections between actual courses. Now, obviously, this is partially due to the fact that there's now 24 racers, but it still kind of worries me. Straight sections and long bends and turns in Mario Kart are known to be boring. That's why Figure 8 Circuit is one of, if not the worst tracks in the series. Now, you could solve this by just increasing the speed at which you drive, just like Mario Kart 8 did with introducing 200cc. But so far, we haven't seen any footage of 200cc being a selectable speed class, not even in the direct. Now, for all we know, this could just be an unlockable thing, like with the Special Cup, because we also haven't even seen Mirror Mode, which has been in the series for forever now. But I am still a bit worried about 200cc not being a thing, and that even more tracks are gonna have long straightaways. I always loved 200cc in 8 Deluxe, so I really hope it returns in this game. But I also don't hope it becomes necessary in order to make the tracks feel fun, and the fact that the game is open world will mask the potential less exciting nature of the tracks themselves. I hope you understand what I'm saying here, but if you don't, feel free to let me know. But overall, the track selection and track quality look to be great. Apart from some weird retro selections and this one worrisome thing I just mentioned, most of the tracks do look like a lot of fun, and they especially nailed it with their theming, aesthetics, and variety. And of course, without having played them myself, I can't judge how fun they really are. So far, I have been pretty positive about the game because there's just so much cool stuff to look at and discuss. But of course, I can't discuss this game without talking about the main problem, the price. We all know by now that the game will cost $80/euros and even €90 for the physical copy, and I really have nothing new to say about this apart from, of course, that this price point is ridiculous. Now, of course, you can get the game for cheaper by buying the bundle, because by doing that you save $30 on the game, or even 40 in Europe, which isn't too bad, but the fact that this is even necessary to bring the price down to a reasonable point is just absurd. Of course, I'll still buy the game. Heck, I've even pre-ordered a bundle like 3 days after the Switch 2 Direct already, and I won't let the currently overly toxic community ruin my hype because it just isn't worth my own sanity. And we don't even know how much content there really is in the game. Like, for all we know, you can get hundreds of hours out of this game and the $80 will be more than worth it, which even now I have no doubts about. I mean, I put nearly 250 hours into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I didn't even have that game up until the end of 2019, and of course I played many other games in the meantime as well, so I'll probably get at least a couple hundred hours from this game as well. But hey, at least it's actually gonna be a polished, finished game without microtransactions, unlike most games nowadays, right? But enough talking about this price crap. I'm not gonna let it ruin my mood and sanity like most people are currently doing. All that I know is that I'm super excited for this game, and I can't wait to play it in just over a month. And yeah, that's basically my thoughts on this game. Even though there are some things I'm worried about, I'm gonna go into this game with an open and optimistic mindset. For now though, that was it for this this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.